Welcome back to the Goat Pod. I'm Harry Hugo, co-founder of Goat Agency. With me, my good friend Ian Shepherd, founder of The Social Store.
Yes.
And also chairman of the Business of Influencers, and on the board with myself.
Exactly.
How long has it been now? I want to say 2 years.
It was almost 2 years ago that we first met, yeah, for the dinner.
So for people who don't know, what is the BOI? And first of all, like, why on earth did you start it in the form that it was right at the start 2 years ago?
So the Business of Influencers is essentially a network bringing together people who work in influencer marketing. Before I started, I worked at Disney. And I had a really interesting career there. I was head of new business development, so I was working on lots of special projects for Disney. And one of the things that I saw was the change in media consumption and how kids were not watching like the Disney Channel anymore, but they were watching YouTube. And I could see that through my own daughter, my now 9-year-old daughter, who had no interest in watching the Disney Channel. Or even when she came with me to watch the Beauty and the Beast premiere,
Wow.
She wanted to watch YouTube on my phone, even though we're at the premiere of the film. And so I could see this kind of shift in consumption, and one of the things Disney did is they acquired Maker Studios. Mm-hmm. So Maker was obviously was the biggest MCN at the time, aggregator of talent, and there were lots of Maker employees within the business. And so I met these guys, learned a lot about the influencer or the digital creator business, and there were lots of things that I saw that were like that to Universal Music, where I worked earlier in my career. And I really loved the fact that these creators had like an engaged audience, but there was so much opportunity from a commercial perspective to work with them. So I thought, okay, well, this is really interesting. How can I meet more people in the kind of creator, influencer marketing industry? There must be like an event to go to, a network, something I can join to meet people. And there was nothing. And so, inspired by a good friend of mine who set this kind of network up in a different industry, and kind of knowing what I know now about kind of being a bit older in my career and knowing it's very important who you know, I thought, well, why don't I start to bring together some people who work in influencer marketing, because I'll benefit from that, from meeting other people, but hopefully, there'll be some more benefit. So I set up the first event in 2017 when I was still at Disney.
So what are the events? So
Yeah.
or what were they in their early form?
So in their early form, the first event was what's called like a mastermind dinner, which is a very US format where essentially 10 to 12 people will come together around a table about this size, and it's curated by the host, but you'll talk about themes or stuff that's going on in the industry.
Normally issues. That would seem
Yeah.
to be the first thing that people talked about. I remember the experience of going around a table talking about that one issue that was causing the most issues or problems in their business.
Yeah.
And then just discussing that for half an hour and then kind of moving on to different things. And by that time, you kind of got to know people. That was the icebreaker.
Exactly.
And the common ground.
Yeah. So, we always started the event by going around the table and getting people to introduce themselves, but then really talking about what people were seeing in the industry. And I was really careful to kind of bring together people that either manage talent or work for brands or platforms or agencies. So there was kind of like a diverse group talking. And kind of the nature of a table like this, there's it kind of breaks down some of the barriers. Like I'm not a massive fan of networking events where everyone's got a badge on and you kind of, because people either gravitate towards people they know, or you end up talking to someone you don't really want to know or talk to. Whereas this is kind of like a really nice format, and I was very lucky that in the events that I ran, there was always like a good mix of people that contributed, and because the more you put in, the more you get out.
100%.
But it was just a great way of connecting. So the first event I did in 2017, there were 12 people that came to the dinner, and no one knew each other before the meeting.
I think that's the difference. We were talking about it off camera.
Yeah.
Was how much the influencer marketing world has changed from agencies to talent, whatever it is, from 2017, where I literally walked into that room. I might have heard of one or two of the people in the room just because of the business maybe I hadn't even heard of their name, but I've heard the business's name talked about in the industry, but I never met them, didn't really want to meet them. You have that kind of like fierce rivalry. I think I sat next to Matt from Takumi.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
And we spent the first 2 years of our business just battling between those two guys, between Goat and Takumi as to who got the budget. And I kind of made that joke, and then it was kind of like the complete icebreaker.
Yeah.
And I think at that point in 2017, people had realised that the pie was so big that actually talking to your competitors, it was what it was, because the money to get and the interest in the market was so great and growing so fast that actually, if we just made the industry better and more professional, and everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew what other people's skills were and businesses' skills were, actually, it was probably better for the market.
Where we are now, 2 years on, it's like a different industry in the UK anyway.
Yep.
When I say that, I mean, there's more events out there, more people trying to do something similar, which is understandable, and everyone knows each other. So there's
And also, so the draw of going to an event
Exactly.
with 30 people, of which you already know 20
Exactly.
personally,
Exactly.
is very different to going to an event of 12, 20 people where you don't know anybody.
Yeah, because I mean, as you say, with the former, you're basically just catching up with people whereas what we were doing with, introducing people. And in fact, the number of people that said to me, that they'd done business off the back of someone they've met at the event is great, right? Because all the time you're adding value to the network, then it's going to get stronger and stronger.
And you obviously, that's where you met Laura.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason you got into the whole business of influence, as you said a minute ago, was to meet people, understand the industry a bit more, network, find your route into what you actually wanted to do. And it was pretty clear from our early discussions that product and productizing the digital assets of what these influencers had or creators had was where you wanted to see yourself in a year or so.
Yeah.
It kind of all came to fruition, right? You met Laura, then you started to talk about with Tiana.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's built out to what it is now, which is a licensing business in product for influencers, which is super smart.
Yeah.
And something no one else is really doing.
No, so I mean, I've always aspired to be an entrepreneur. All my corporate roles have been business development, so growing new businesses within a business. I had a business about 5 years ago that was like a product company working with DJs,
Okay.
and it was almost like influencer marketing a little bit too soon. And we had this sunglasses brand, and I had all of the biggest DJs in the world wearing the sunglasses, but kind of the whole social promotion and stuff just wasn't what it is now, and it just never made it. And also, sunglasses is a really seasonal business, but so there's always a desire to launch a new business again. And what really excited me about seeing the creator space and working with influencers is that there was so much opportunity to work with them and create businesses. They've got this really engaged audience. It's really disruptive. I like disrupting stuff. And the first kind of business that I really wanted to look at was around taking everything I knew at Disney. Disney create the best consumer products or licensed consumer products in the world by none. I had an amazing network from that and understanding about how to build a brand. And, again, even through my own daughter who was watching Tiana's videos, I kind of identified Tiana as being a really strong star. She was great on camera, she's got a really big audience, and Viral Talent, who work with her and manage her, kind of a really, a smart company as well.
Explain to the audience who Tiana is. Like,
Sure.
how old is she? What does she do? Why is she famous?
Sure. So Tiana is an 11-year-old girl from Nottingham. She started YouTube about 4 years ago when she had chicken pox, and she was a big fan of watching it herself. And she asked her dad, can we record some videos? And they started creating them. And it's very much around like unboxing at the time. So, unboxing toys and playing with slime and various other things like that. And that whole kind of world just really took off. So she kind of she was in the right place at the right time. But I always think, if you look at any successful creator, they work hard at their craft, and they continue to put videos out when not many people were watching them, and suddenly you just kind of, as you say, you ride the wave, and it grows. So she does that. She's growing up now. So because she's 11, she's moved away from toys, because the 11-year-old girls don't play with toys, and so she's doing a lot more challenges and pranks and things with her friends, a bit of fashion, that type of thing. But she's got 16 million subscribers across her 2 YouTube channels, which is bigger than any other girl in the world at her age. I think she was the youngest girl to ever reach 10 million subscribers on her channel, one of her channels. And she's incredibly successful, but also really great on camera and a really nice, just a lovely girl.
And what did you do with her? What was the idea, and how does something go from idea in this world right the way through to where it got to, which was Stockton Asda? Yeah.
So the thing that I love about working with digital creators compared to kind of a traditional brand like Disney is it's just so fast moving. So I can talk to Tiana or her dad and I do all of the time around the products that we're creating. Whereas when you work for a company like Disney, there's so much red tape and so many people in the process that you can't make things happen.
So number of stakeholders, right?
Exactly.
You're dealing with so few people, and most of the time you're dealing with one person. In this case, you're dealing with two because of the age of the person.
Yeah, that's right. But you can make things happen really quickly. So, every one of Tiana's videos will get more than 1 million views. So I can call her dad one day and, he can create some content, and within a day it's got 1 million views. Now, again, compared to kind of the old traditional world, that type of thing just can't happen so quickly. So one of the great projects that we worked on together was kind of somewhat the launch of her brand, and that was by doing a pop-up shop.
Yeah.
And we did that at the Bullring in Birmingham. And what I really wanted to do was to show kind of like retailers like Asda and Tesco just how big the phenomenon is that is a YouTuber, and how kind of important they are in kids' lives. And I thought the only way I can do that, they can't really understand what 1 million views is, or 1 billion views, or 10 million subscribers. We need to put it into real terms, and the only way to do that is to just show them kind of kids going mad. So we decided that we were going to do a pop-up shop in Birmingham at the Bullring, and in 2 weeks we were going to turn it around from an idea to execution in 2 weeks. And I drove from Tiana's house with her manager to the Bullring, and we walked around the Bullring, and we found this empty unit that was being used for a pop-up shop space next to Selfridges. Yep. We called the Bullring management there and then and said, look, how much to rent this out in 2 weeks' time? They said, this is how much it is. We said what we wanted to do, agreed a deal, and we had 2 weeks to create a shop. We measured it up, bought the stock, and 3 days before the shop, Tiana promoted it on her channel, and she said, look guys, we're going to do a meet and greet in Birmingham, we're going to have a Hearts by Tiana shop there. And from that second, the phone at the Bullring was ringing off the hook. They were like, where are you promoting this? Everybody wants to come along. There's families saying that they want to sleep outside to be first in line. What's going on? And they were really surprised about kind of the interest and why, who Tiana was even. And so we set the shop up on Friday. I went to my hotel at like 2 a.m, came back 4 hours later, and already at 6 a.m. the queue was round the block of kids and families that wanted to meet Tiana and buy the products. And over the course of 2 days, 10,000 people turned up to see her at the Bullring.
Crazy.
I mean, there was just
it's nuts. The video is crazy. Like you said, people just don't actually know what the figures mean.
No, exactly.
So seeing, and I call it like YouTube in real life.
Yeah.
And it's just nuts. And there's only a few people in the UK that can create quite the pandemonium that she creates.
Yeah, exactly.
But oh my word.
It was the biggest ever event at the time in Birmingham or something, more than any other celebrities that turned up. And yeah, it was exciting. I mean, even I, who was expecting big things, was like, wow, what have we done here? This is like proper crazy. Yeah. But it was really exciting because, the kids as well really enjoyed being there and seeing Tiana. And it's, she's not like a celebrity like when I grew up, where they were like a pop star. There was no way of interacting.
Exactly,
they weren't real people. It was like, oh, there's Tiana and her parents as well. The families that come, the mum and the dad talk to Tiana's mum and dad, and everyone kind of like it's a real normal thing. And that again is like really nice about, a digital creator and what's different from kind of like a celebrity that puts themselves on this pedestal, complete diva, won't talk to the fans or whatever. Bit of a sweeping statement, but compared to kind of like the creators, where
because of how they've got to where they are, they had to be a community based.
Yeah,
they had to engage. They had to care about the audience, because they're not just throwing stuff out. They have to cultivate the audience. They have to make the people care.
Yeah,
because it's not necessarily a traditional talent. It's community engagement is really what their talent is.
Exactly, and so it's so nice to just see the fans meet Tiana meet the fans, and just kind of feel quite proud of something that you've created that everyone is taking a lot of kind of happiness from. And that kind of goes on to the brand and kind of what we've done with the brand. So merchandise, like loads and loads of creators sell merchandise, and it's great. It's very commonly kind of like a Gildan t-shirt, screen printed, on demand. Everyone's doing it. But what we wanted to do with Hearts by Tiana was create so much more than that, and create almost like what Disney call a franchise, where it's more than just a logo or an image. There's actually real essence to the brand.
What's the Disney equivalent?
So Disney equivalent would be, any of their
Spider-Man.
Yeah, so things like Frozen is their biggest girls franchise of the age group. So obviously the film Frozen with Anna and Elsa, typically they sell hundreds and hundreds of different types of products branded like that. And what I wanted to do is create a girls franchise with Tiana in that space. And one of the things that I knew from my time at Disney is that they've got all of the best franchises, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or Cars or Toy Story or Frozen. But actually in the older girls area, they used to have High School Musical, they used to have Hannah Montana, but they don't really have anything there. So in terms of kind of what's the licensed world, there was kind of like a gap in the retail for something different. So that was one of the things that kind of attracted me to creating a franchise in this space. And what we did was, rather than, again, just create T-shirts and hoodies, what we really wanted to do was create a brand that could be sold into mass market. So you could go down the high street, or you could go into the supermarket where kids and families typically get a lot of their clothes, and actually buy YouTuber clothes for pretty much the first time. So there's a couple of examples. Zoella's done some interesting stuff. Dan TDM had a tiny little bit of stuff. But really, if you go into a supermarket, which is where most kids' clothing is sold, or on the high street, then you can't buy any YouTuber clothes. You can't buy any merch. It's all
It's
kind
always
of like old
classically
school
been
stuff.
a D2C.
Yeah, exactly.
Brands, merchandise, direct to consumer.
Exactly.
Product, right? You
But
go on their website, you buy it, gets shipped to you by them.
Yeah. But the thing is, what's different when you kind of make it to the scale that we're making it for Hearts by Tiana in the license space is that you do huge volumes, so the quality, the cost of the product comes down massively, but also the quality goes up. So again, like a typical merchandise product is like a Gildan t-shirt, screen print on it, and that's about it, and you sell it for 20 quid, or a hoodie for 30, roughly. And that's kind of like kids saying to their parents, I want to buy this hoodie for 30 quid. Now what we have with the scale that we've done kind of Tiana stuff at Asda is you can buy a hoodie there for a tenner or a t-shirt for 6 quid. And when parents are asked, by the kids, I want to buy my favourite YouTuber's product, it's quite different buying a much better quality t-shirt at a much lower price where they would typically buy a lot of their clothes. We're jumping around a bit, but when we launched Hearts by Tiana in Asda, which is where it kind of launched, what happened was we had thousands and thousands of kids go to Asda on the day it launched and buy like 6 items of merchandise, because it was selling merch, as they all call it, in a way that had never been done before.
What makes a YouTuber prime, or a creator prime, for that level of productization?
Ultimately, they need a really engaged, loyal audience, and a sizable audience. And what's interesting, because we've done some merchandise with various different creators over the last year. I don't think it's core to what we do, but it's been an interesting exercise. And even a creator that's got more than 1 million subscribers, they may not be particularly loyal. And when they, there's been some news or articles around about how, YouTubers tried to sell t-shirts and couldn't sell them. Some of them work with trends and their videos are trend-led, but the fans, they don't have real fans. But what you see with someone like Tiana is she has a really loyal, engaged audience, and that's what makes the difference.
People that follow the people for the people, not for the content.
Exactly. And the other thing as well, really, is just kind of like the licensing industry is really slow, in the sense that if you're going to make 100,000 t-shirts and they're going to be made in Turkey or the Far East, they don't kind of appear on the shelves the next week. There's a long process to manufacture them, but there's also, retailers like Asda and Tesco and on the high street, they've got all of their kind of shelves planned out for months ahead. So you might have the hottest YouTuber, but they've already allocated shelf space to another brand. So they need to understand, they need to buy into the idea that they want to put a YouTuber's merch on there and commit kind of shelf space to that. And that process is very long. So what we're doing with Hearts by Tiana is creating a franchise that gives them comfort that this isn't like a one night or one hit wonder. It's not it's not going to, Tiana's going to get bigger and bigger and become even more relevant. She's not going to kind of fall off the face of the earth tomorrow. So that's partly why we also created the brand.
And it was successful, right? It sold out.
It was so successful. So the licensing industry is built around a show called Brand Licensing Europe in Europe, and it's in London. In fact, the next one is next week. And last year we presented Hearts by Tiana for the first time.
I remember that very clearly. I remember the stand you had, and she was there stand. For one day?
Yeah, she did. So what we wanted to do, we did the pop-up shop 2 weeks before, and what I wanted to show to everyone there was just how big Tiana was. And so we had probably the smallest stand at the whole show at Olympia, but we had the biggest TV screen of anyone. And it was this TV wall that was kind of like 2.5 meters wide by 4 meters wide by 2.5 meters tall. And it basically just showed the shop on repeat, basically all these kids buying the stuff. So at that deal, no one attended had any idea who Tiana was or what Hearts by Tiana was. And we presented it, we presented everything that we'd done in terms of the guide, and at that show we attracted interest from all the big retailers and the licensees. And the licensees are kind of the intermediary, the company that manufactures the products. Okay. So for example, when you buy a pair of Disney pajamas, it's not Disney that's made those pajamas, it's a specialist pajama company, and they pay Disney a royalty for selling the Star Wars pajamas, for example.
Yep.
So we were pitching to the same companies to make Tiana's pajamas, and through the relationships I had at Disney, that really helped. But what we were trying to identify was the retailer and the licensees that were willing to take a bit of a risk on something, but something that would hopefully be really successful. So we pitched it in October at Brand Licensing Europe, and it took until May the following year to launch, which, that gives you an idea. It took 9 months
from
pitching it, right? And in the YouTuber world, that's,
silly time.
It's silly time.
It's risky.
Yeah.
Like you said, right? It's you don't know when someone's going to be hot and then not.
Exactly.
In the YouTube world, that's not an uncommon thing.
No, exactly. I think Tiana gained about 4 million subscribers between BLE in October and the launch in May. So, but in that time we were basically working with the suppliers to kind of design the products, and the key thing was making sure that everything, whether it was pajamas or bags or shoes or accessories, they all kind of looked like a coherent range of products because they're made by different people.
So what were the products like? Because this is it's not what fascinated me, but it was what was very different about this range than probably any other merchandise that you see from YouTubers, where it is just t-shirts and hoodies. This was a very, very different collection. Exactly what you'd expect from a Star Wars or a classic Disney range. Like, what was the extent of the things that you could buy?
Yes, the key thing was obviously the fashion stuff. So kind of the day wear, which was started with t-shirts and hoodies, but a lot more kind of extravagant. So they weren't just kind of like a plain t-shirt. It might have had a bow on or something, and there was a lot of kind of what they call embellishment. So whether it was like sequins and various other things, just because that's kind of what was on trend, and not the type of thing that you would get from traditional merch.
Yep.
But we had pajamas. So pajamas are huge from a kind of a license perspective. Like Disney sells millions of pairs of pajamas every year, or people buy millions of pairs. But we also had shoes. So Tiana's got like a shoe range, which is like trainers and school shoes. We've got bags. We've got hair accessories, which is everything from like we've got lunch boxes and water bottles.
So things that parents buy kids.
Yeah, so really for back to school, which is a huge pencil cases, notebooks, and then even things like duvet covers and cushions and stuff.
It's just stuff that no other YouTuber has ever created.
Exactly.
No other YouTubers creating pencil cases and things like that because, one, it's just a very different age group, and two, because they're so fixated on the t-shirts and the hoodies, and they're not thinking outside the box of things that actually people are probably more likely to buy. And in her age bracket, pencil case, school bag, school shoes, like absolute no-brainers. Like, you buy them every year, maybe every 6 months. It's just a complete cycle, and then you fill in the gaps with all the fashion stuff.
Exactly. So it was really exciting to create these ranges. We were working with all of Disney's best licensees, so the quality of the product was really good. Like the school shoes were maybe like £11 or £12, but they were lovely school shoes for kids that age. They had Hearts by Tiana over them, they had the branding, they were well made. And again, one of the things I really like about working with creators is the fact that you get immediate feedback on the products. So these kids were running into Asda the day products were launched, which is almost unheard of in kind of a typical licensing world. Like if there's a new range of Spider-Man products in Asda, no one really runs
rushing.
there.
No one's rushing to get them.
buy it, because, their son wants a pair of pajamas, but not because it's just launched. Whereas with Tiana, we were able to build this, which was exciting.
Yeah, it's a merch drop, right?
Exactly like that. And then you get this immediate feedback from the comments in terms of we love this and stuff.
Right? No one, even if they are rushing to go to get the Spider-Man stuff, no one is talking about it on social. Because that's just not what happens.
Exactly.
When you buy something in a shop, you very rarely go home and talk about it on social, let alone when you're 11, 12, 13 years old. And this age group, with the products that she's putting out, obviously they want to go and talk about the fact they got it. That's the reason they got it in the first place.
Yeah,
social credibility.
And it was so nice to see, because what we could see from the social listening was just kids meeting other kids who were excited to buy the products, or like parents going, we went to 3 different Asdas to get the full range and stuff, and we've got all these pictures of kids with just everything. They've bought like a whole range of products and stuff, and there's a real kind of sense of satisfaction you take from kind of making those types of things happen. And it's a credit to the family as well, and Tiana, for creating some really interesting content. So one of the things I'm also proud about is how it wasn't kind of like a hard sell, kids, you must go to Asda to buy this, but we did lots of teasing of the products before it launched. And then we had this kind of like one standout piece of content we created, whereby we worked very closely with Asda to film this video in an Asda store. So Asda's obviously open 24 hours a day, except on Sundays where they have to close. When it was closed on a Sunday evening, we filmed a piece of content where we created this bedroom, and it was a mock bedroom in her local Asda store. And the video is essentially Tiana wakes up in this new bedroom, and doing like a room tour is kind of like one of the things that kids do. So she kind of wakes up and she's in this Hearts by Tiana branded bedroom, but then it kind of pans out. She looks through the windows and she's in Asda, and so the video is filmed where she's kind of living in Asda, and she's kind of brushing her teeth and getting some cornflakes. And I thought what was nice was, look, from a viral video perspective, it was a take on what was really trending, but quite different. And authentically, people could see it was at Asda. They could see she was wearing the Hearts by Tiana pajamas, but it wasn't kind of like in your face. And so it felt really authentic and right for the audience. And Asda were really supportive in terms of helping us make that happen. So it's been like a really exciting project, and it's interesting because next week is a year after the first brand license in Europe, and my business, the social store, going back. But instead of just saying we've got Hearts by Tiana now, we're going to say, look, we can do more than just Tiana, and it's really trying to identify where there are other creators that could create something in a similar way she has. And that doesn't have to say it's kids, because licensing isn't just about kids, but it could be about other ranges of products. So that could be like products, home products and stuff, whether it's cushions and candles and stuff like that, or beauty products and stuff. And there's no other...
food now, very, very popular, right? Licensing to... has Joe Wick's got a range, right?
Yeah, I think he's doing stuff. Is it maybe with Gusto or someone like that? He might have a range or something. But
so that's less licensing, but...
it would probably be the similar type of deal. But yeah, I think food's interesting because if you look way back to kind of like the celebrities and the cooking sauces and the chefs, like Lloyd Grossman and Jamie Oliver have their own sauces.
Well, Mob Kitchen might have one.
Right.
I'm not sure if they've got one, or they've certainly got a partnership with like Wagamama. They do all of Wagamama's promotions, very much pushed by them as they're vegan guys. So that's quite an interesting one.
Yeah, there is so much scope. And it's exciting to be working in this place, because these creators are have a really engaged audience, and it's a lot of it of what we're doing is educating traditional retailers like your Asda's about how you can work with stars like Tiana, but also the licensees, these companies that make the products, to take a risk and ultimately partner with a brand that's growing and not a brand that's declining. And a lot of the licensed stuff that comes through from the major films is declining, because if you think about it, a major film release, let's say like Toy Story, you've got this massive spike in awareness when the film comes out, and there's loads of advertising around the country and stuff. But then it is an old franchise, but it still kind of really falls away quite quickly. Kids might go to the cinema in the summer and watch it, and then it just disappears. Whereas if you look at something like Tiana or other creators, kids are going home and engaging with them all of the time. So they go home, 3 or 4 nights a week and watch a Tiana video.
Yeah, go
constantly.
home and watch old videos.
Exactly. Whereas with, Toy Story, right? You go to the cinema and watch it. It's great fun. Let's buy a T-shirt, but you're not interacting with the franchise in that same way. And it's a little bit. It's very similar to gaming, right? Kids will go home and play Fortnite every night, and so that's a franchise they engage with. And what we've got with these influencers is something that's really something they're engaging with, but something that's also relevant. Because if it's Christmas or if it's Easter or if it's Halloween, Tiana is creating content around those moments.
And
so again,
anyway.
Exactly. So it's really disruptive and an exciting time to be kind of working in this space. And
what's the next move? Like, where do we see licensing in a few years' time in this space? Like, are we expecting a few in the same way as Disney's got multiple franchises that hit different kind of interest groups and verticals? You've obviously nailed it with Tiana, which is very much girls, young girls. And there's a gap in the market for the guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Young girls and then young boys. And then aging that up to, maybe even 15, 16, 17-year-olds, both genders. And then, like, the 25 to 35 group.
Yeah.
That is a harder thing
Yeah, licensed products are typically sold to kids, which is why Disney and Universal and Warner Brothers are so successful at what they do. But if you went to the brand licensing show and looked at all of the brands there's a lot of sports brands, for example. So, football clubs will license their brand to make all sorts of stuff like pencil cases and various other bits and pieces. What we've done with Tiana is really taken kind of like one of the biggest talents and created a brand around them. For me, as a strategy, what I don't want to do is have like 20 different creators. I'd rather have 3 amazing creators like what Disney do, creating amazing brands. But what I think we'll see is more people coming into this space, and a bit like kind of niche creators have a really engaged niche audience. We'll have kind of more niche licensing brands where someone might have a particular, fitness product or something. They're known for it. They're very good at that, and that is their license range. But they don't then have like a range of a million different things.
I think your sweet spot is someone like Tiana, which is someone who is famous and loved for being the personality that she is, rather than necessarily someone who is famous for a product or famous for using one thing, which kind of limits you into the classic merchandise route. Yeah. Whereas Tiana is a brand for herself, and therefore you can create duvet covers and pencil cases and T-shirts and whatever you want because she's famous for being her. And there are plenty of other people like that in the world.
I think one of the things I'm excited about seeing, and having seen it in the music industry, is how the top creators, they don't have to be the top creators, but how creators build their brand beyond the core content. So they're not YouTubers, but they're kind of businesses and brands in their own right. And if you kind of look at the music industry, and when I worked there, what was coined like the 360 deal, where you kind of had musicians, they lost a lot of their revenue from recorded music because of piracy and streaming services coming in, and so they were making revenue from other streams like events and brands and merchandise. And what I think it'd be interesting to see is how the best creators take what they've built on YouTube and use that to build other stuff. So if we use the example of Tiana, she's got an incredibly successful YouTube channel, and now she's building a brand around that, like a products and license brand. But there's potential for her to do other stuff as well, whether that's events or theatre or TV. And as we're seeing with some of the other kind of prominent talent, like for example KSI, right? He's built more than just his videos, but with the events and the fighting and the music, he's building kind of like a bigger brand.
Yeah, brand KSI is
exactly.
You couldn't really define him anymore, which is kind of goes to his credit.
And it's that classic thing that the sum of the parts are greater than just the individual components, right?
100%.
So what might not appear to be hugely deliver loads of money, but is really building the revenue, is interesting when I think creators look at themselves like that. So they're doing stuff to build the whole business and not just kind of like where's the quick money. And I think understandably lots of influencers want to take the deal in their hand because if there's money for promoting a product, it makes sense. But those that are kind of building a business that will grow and have value and equity in time are the ones that are going to be the super smart ones to take advantage of that.
3 years ago, you're sat in a premiere with your daughter watching Tiana on her phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Dad gets to introduce Tiana to your daughter.
Yes.
What's that dynamic? Are you a hero?
Yeah,
Or
I
are you
mean,
just still the uncle dad because...
No, it's another really great anecdotal story which I love to tell. But my daughter's very lucky; she's met all of the YouTubers that she likes, whether it's Tiana or Family Fizz or someone. And my daughter came with me to meet with Tiana, and she in fact playing with Tiana in one of her videos, and was filmed as quite a core part of one of Tiana's videos. And this was at the weekend, and she went to school on the Monday, and she was in the playground, and literally like every kid in the playground ran up to her and said, "Isla, how do you know Tiana?" And my daughter didn't realise that the video had been posted on YouTube, and all the kids had been watching Tiana because they all watched Tiana at the weekend, and they'd seen my daughter in it. And for me, that's kind of like the water cooler moment. It's like, wow, this is how pivotal kind of Tiana is in this group of friends, because they all watch it. And if you think about, if my daughter had been on kind of a show on Channel 4, in fact even in a Disney film, like maybe a small proportion of the kids might have said, "Oh, were you in that film at the cinema or something?" But not to the level that they're all like, "We all saw you." So it's kind of interesting to see how it's just another great example of how influential someone like Tiana is in kids' lives. Or of her with her audience.
And she's delighted that you got to introduce her to someone that she admired, right?
Exactly, and all of her friends want the product as well.
Oh, that's great.
It is, and it's interesting.
Gets your daughter on side nice and early.
Exactly, so it's fun, but she's not going to be a YouTuber, I don't think.
By your choice?
Well, we did try it.
She starred in a video, right?
She did. We did try it, but it's hard, right? And I don't know. I don't think she wants it. It's not like a profession, but she loves YouTube and watching it, and it's really interesting to see it through her eyes as well, right? To see how she consumes the content.
It's great to have the target audience in your back pocket.
I mean, every day I say to her, what content are you? And I know that, for example, one of the families that she was watching, I said to Viral Talent, this is, Isla's watching this family, and they signed them off the back of it, right? So that kind of shows you that she's kind of on the ground watching the content and consuming it.
It's why I got my first job, because I was 18, sports fan, and that's what they wanted. So I went and worked for Aaron at Sport Lobster because I knew how to do the job, but also I was bang target market.
Yeah.
So in terms of actually what was going to appeal to those people, I could massively empathise with it, because I was the person they wanted to get on anyway.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and even just showing her products or saying, "What do you think of this?"
exactly,
and stuff is good. I mean, obviously it's a sample of one, but still, it's still interesting.
It's that instant reaction, like, do they go, "Wow, I'd love to have that. Can I have it? Can I have that?" Or
it's okay.
where they're being nice.
Yeah, so it's I mean, it's fascinating, and I
You just take it to school and you get a sample of 100
well,
very quickly.
Yeah, even being at her school and collecting her one day and seeing like 3 or 4 other kids who don't know her wearing, having a Tiana backpack or something, was just like, wow, this is pretty big when you see that kind of like, people are buying the products not because they know me, but because they're all fans.
It comes back to, you might see the numbers in a spreadsheet with the amount of sales you've made or the amount of money you've made off the back of the sales.
Sure.
But seeing that product being worn or bought by someone that you don't know, just randomly, is so much more powerful. It comes back to the shop thing that you talked about, where people don't believe it until they see real people in real life doing something that they didn't expect.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that with other creators I've worked with as well. Like I worked with Family Fizz, and we did like a pop-up shop for them at one of their events, and just seeing how excited the fans are to really engage with and just watch a show. And one of the other kind of early moments I had is I went to watch Markiplier when he was doing a show at Hammersmith Apollo, and there's like 3,000 audience, and everyone was in there. The second doors opened. Everyone,
same case like Logan Paul, right?
Exactly the same. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, waiting for the next joke. And the show was so basic in its kind of execution and, you know, the production. They didn't have any fancy lights or fireworks or anything. It was basically just him and 3 other YouTubers on stage chatting, like, and, you know, there was an element of script to it, but they were just having a bit of a laugh. And yet you had 3,000 people that were more engaged than I've seen most ever music or rock events. But they were there with their favourite creator. And it's another example, I think, that when done right, there's huge opportunities for influencers, but also brands to get involved in this whole kind of world of events and experiential stuff that something like a creator can, you know, bring together that no one else can.
So what are the differences from, you know, when you started business of influence, or when you first started getting into this world to now? What are the differences you see in the industry?
I mean, from a influencer marketing perspective, there's just so many more people in the industry, right? And they've either kind of come in because they've had a connection, or maybe because they've seen the opportunity. Like we were saying earlier, there's a lot of people out there trying to do it, and a lot of people know each other. I think, unfortunately, that's brought some bad practice into it as well, and some bad rep for the industry. And one of the things that always kind of annoys me is that there's lots of bad press around stuff on YouTube. You know, isn't it terrible that this video's come out about X or Y? But there's so much positive stuff that's done on, you know, by these creators as well.
Yep.
So if I think about, you know, teenagers might be going through something really personal in their life and they don't have anyone to talk to, but there might be a creator that's creating content relevant to kind of what they're going through or something, and it kind of makes
or
them
just
feel,
someone who's making them laugh on
Yeah.
a daily basis,
which is really positive. And unfortunately, sometimes all you hear is the bad stuff about, you know, poorly, you know, misplaced advertising, or the very, you know, occasional content which is not right. And unfortunately, you're going to get that due to the nature of the content creation. But there's so much positive stuff. So, you know, what I want to see is kind of more respect for some of that great stuff that's out there. And I think it's going to be interesting to see just kind of how, you know, how regulations change. Obviously, YouTube have made some big announcements in the last couple of weeks about their kids' content, which is massive. No one really knows exactly the impact that that's going to have on kind of the kids' channels.
What do you think it's going to have?
I think ultimately,
what's the regulation, first of all?
So the FTC in the US fined YouTube 170 million, or Google 170 million, I think, for kind of not providing enough protection around kids and kids' data and stuff. And so they've kind of changed the rules around kind of how they are going to promote and monetize kids' content moving forwards. And the tricky thing is that everything's done via the algorithm. So kind of what's classified as kids' content can be a very grey area. Just because a video's got a child in it, does that mean it's kind of like a kids' content? You know, if Jake Paul's video's got a kid in it, is it kids' content, or is it, you know, he's not necessarily targeting it at young kids? And no one knows exactly kind of the impact of the monetization around that and how it will affect it, because, you know, YouTube aren't going to run targeted advertising on what they perceive to be kids' content, which means that, you know, the CPMs will fall massively, and how, you know, a lot of creators, for them that was their living, and that's going to change a lot. But then ultimately, you know, if we talk about kind of the example of my daughter again, my daughter's not going to suddenly kind of turn on the TV and say to me, "So Dad, what's this, you know, TV all about? They've stopped putting videos on YouTube, so I'll watch that now." She's going to want to consume that same content somewhere else. So does that mean that creators go to a different platform, or is it monetized in a different way?
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult one, right? YouTube has a certain amount of power, but at the same time, the creators have all the power. And they, you know, examples like Tiana show you that they can move their audience pretty much wherever they want, and the thirst for people to watch that content despite its channel is very, very high. And we're going to see that again with KSI Logan Paul, right, where they've basically gone, it doesn't matter if it's on YouTube or not, there's still a barrier to entry for the pay-per-view. And they proved it with the pay-per-view. Like, they got 1 million people to pay for it, when normally people don't pay for KSI and Logan Paul content, but they did.
Yeah.
And this time they're going, well, if you're going to pay for it, it doesn't matter if it's on YouTube or not. It might as well go and do it on a platform where they're going to pay us properly to go and do this. And the Zone is a great option to do that. So I totally agree. I think the Zone is its first mover in this kind of, are people going to start taking YouTube talent and using it as a way of moving audience completely? I think we've seen it with Ninja.
Yeah, exactly.
A Mixer.
Yeah.
That's exactly the move. There is going to be another video channel soon that's going to go, all right, well, we're going to take these 5 people and they're just going to create content on our channel.
Yes.
And it'll be very interesting because, like you say, the creators are far more important than the platform.
Yeah, I mean, there's analogies again with the music industry, right? So there's a number of different streaming platforms,
exactly,
and
yeah.
Jay-Z acquired a streaming platform and then put his content exclusively on his platform because that was the way that he built kind of a point of differentiation for Tidal, which is his streaming platform, but you can still get Spotify and Apple Music. So it'd be interesting to see kind of how that, if there's analogies from that in terms of whether, and how creators grow. I think that there's a good example that, creators understand it, but they can't be reliant on one platform. And for a lot of them, kind of YouTube was very lucrative. But how they move their audiences around different platforms will be interesting as well. And that's why I think building a brand and not just being kind of like known for a particular thing is important. Yeah,
diversifying your revenue in any world is very, very important. But I think YouTubers and creators have become so, reliant on that one, or maybe even naive to think that that's not going to go away, and things change all the time. And the people that have diversified that income to products and maybe other channels and other social medias that pay them in different ways or different formats. You look at Joe Sugg, who's done a great job of diversifying his his ability to go and get paid to do anything, really. He did the Strictly Come Dancing show, and now he's got the podcast off the back of the Strictly Come Dancing show to do the Strictly Come Dancing podcast, and I'm sure he's getting paid pretty well to do that. And
that's great, right? Because it's great how
fantastic. He was theatre, right?
Yeah, he was a YouTuber first, and now he's built a whole kind of business and ecosystem around what he did from that, and that's what really excites me, working with these different creators that kind of YouTube or Instagram or social first, but then do other stuff. I mean, again, classic case, but like Joe Wicks, right? He's been so successful at selling his kind of fitness plans off the back of his social, that his social was just a way of promoting the fitness plans. And what a great business, and no one should take away from him the hard work to do that and the success he had, because he did something unique there. And I think that there's loads more businesses and business models that will come from this type of creator.
So we've been going for nearly an hour, and to the point where London's got dark. Last question I normally ask people is, what do you do to unwind in your spare time?
What do I do to unwind? My passion outside of everything we do here is cars. I'm a bit of a petrol head. And so I race cars when I have a spare moment, which is quite hard with 3 kids.
Like
and
track days?
Started at track days, but I have a racing license, and I race.
Cool. How did I not know that about you?
I race predominantly in the UK, but like Silverstone and Brands Hatch and Donington and all these types of tracks, and I've raced abroad as well. So
that's wicked.
Yeah, it's a bit different, right? It's but it's just like just about the only time that
it's the adrenaline rush.
Yeah, and I cannot be thinking about work because
my brain's to concentrate.
Exactly, my brain's ticking over. But for that, it's something different. So it's my way of doing something a bit.
When did
different.
you start doing that?
So that was something I did when I left university. And as a kid, I always wanted to do karting. And I left university, and I got kind of my first paycheck in my corporate job. And I was like, let's get a race license and go racing.
Do you have your own race cars?
Yeah, so I've got a BMW race car that I use. It's nice to have a hobby where not everyone is the same as you, and there's lots of entrepreneurs that race cars, not least because it's an expensive hobby, but you just have this really eclectic group of people that come together, but with a common interest of kind of like adrenaline and cars, and so that's quite nice. I met a lot of business owners, and in fact my lawyer, who's one of the a very senior lawyer, is someone I met through racing first, and now kind of does all of my legal stuff. So
wicked! What a great story to finish. I can't believe I didn't know that about
Excellent.
you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. That was really interesting. I think everything that Tiana's doing and you've done to help in the last year, 18 months has been super successful. And I'm very excited to see where the whole licensing and the product stuff goes in the next few years, because it's kind of a complete open book. And like you said, half an hour ago, I don't really think that many people have thought about it properly, and it's a huge opportunity that's going to blow up. And yeah, God knows where it's going to go.
No, it's exciting. What I would say is it's, and I'm not saying this because we're doing it, but it doesn't happen overnight, and it has to have a really thought-out strategy from people who understand the industry. It's quite hard. It's not like, let's have a website and sell some T-shirts. There needs to be the right kind of process that goes through it, but there's so much scope out there, and I'd encourage influencers or talent managers and stuff to think about how they can incorporate this as kind of like another revenue stream into what they do, because it doesn't have to be kind of the biggest talent or the most obvious products or the most obvious retailers, but something that they're really famous for, and something that could be their a bit business for them in the future.
Ian, delight. Thank you very much.
No,
Appreciate
thank you for having
it.
me.
And we've got all sorts of podcasts in the can, haven't we?
I think we've got one every day for the next 2 weeks.
Perfect. We got loads of podcasts. So if you are new to this, then go back and listen to those. We also daily vlog on LinkedIn and YouTube, so go and watch those as well. Thank you very much for listening or watching, and we'll see you next time.